The 2018 NBA playoffs are now in full swing and the stakes are rising with each passing day. The postseason is tough even for hardcore us NBA fans and blog boys. Personal relationships and job productivity must fall by the wayside so that we can watch Jason Terry attempt to guard Shane Larkin on and after timeout inbound play and subsequently scream at our televisions. Well, why not have some fun as the plot thickens and the playoffs intensity? And what better way to do so than to find out which team will take home the Larry O'Brien Trophy in the simulated NBA 2K18 universe? Well, we played the postseason out virtually and here are the wacky, often ridiculous results. Round 1, DeMar DeRozan looking gloomy as the Raptors lose in 7. Screenshot courtesy of NBA 2K18 Wizards 4 Raptors 3: Fire up the Raptors hot takes and get ready to blow this team to smithereens. The virtual Raptors became the consummate caricature of their real counterparts. After comfortably taking Game 1, Toronto melted down in the fourth quarter of Game 2, losing 122-117 after getting outscored 35-25, in a move eerily reminiscent of last Tuesday's actual Game 2. Scott Brooks surprisingly played Ty Lawson big minutes off the bench. In 2K Brooks's decision actually worked though, as Lawson went off for 14 points and carried the Washington bench. The series went back and forth after that game, with both teams trading blowouts until a close Game 7 in Toronto. And of course in the most Raptorsy fashion of all, Toronto blew Game 7 at home as DeRozan and Lowry combined for 9 of 33 from the field. The Wizards took the game 121-114 after the Raptors' offense stalled out late in the game. Brad Beal came up huge for the Wizards throughout the series, averaging 25 points per game on 56% shooting. Crisis mode is activated in Toronto. Cavaliers 4 Pacers 3: This could be a prescient prediction by 2K, as the Cavs and Pacers seems destined to go the distance. The bizarro Cavs definitely showed up throughout this matchup, either demolishing the Pacers or getting completely dismantled themselves. They lost Games 4 and 6 by more than 30 points each, only to score an absurd 147 points in a 32-point Game 7 victory. LeBron carried the Cavs as usual, but notoriously streaky shooters J.R. Smith and Jordan Clarkson chipped in with a few huge performances. Victor Oladipo impressed in his Pacers playoff debut, averaging 26/5/5 on crazy shooting efficiency. A star has truly emerged in Indiana, but LeBron got the better of Indiana's new superstar, going off for 13 of 18 shooting in the close-out game. James set the tone for Cleveland as the Cavs shot 63% from the field, setting up a round 2 matchup with the feisty Wizards. Sixers 4 Heat 1. NBA 2K trusts the process. The Sixers pummeled the Heat in a short 5-game series, winning by an eye-popping margin of 18.6 points per game. Yikes. Coach Spo and the Heat simply had no answers for the dynamic Sixers offense. Philadelphia put on a ridiculous team performance, with 8 players averaging 10 points per game or more. The Sixers poured in 119.2 points per game on the stalwart Miami defense. The series culminated in a 148-103 embarrassment in which the Philly lit the world on fire, nailing 20 shots from beyond the arc. With the exception of Goran Dragic, nobody on the Heat was able to break out offensively. Hassan Whiteside and Josh Richardson were especially disappointing, shooting far below their usual level of efficiency from the field. As Joe Embiid so eloquently put it, the Sixers were a nightmare for Miami. Bucks 4 Celtics 2. The simulated Bucks appear to have a slightly more competent version of Coach Prunty at the helm. They didn't self-combust in every game of this series. With that said, they somehow won a playoff series in 2018, averaging an unthinkably low 14.3 attempts per game from three-point land. The Celtics won 2 rock fights in Boston, after the Bucks hilariously took 8 3-pointers in Game 2. Milwaukee eventually wore down Boston, however, winning 4 straight and finally breaking down Boston's lockdown defense. Without Kyrie Irving in the lineup, the Celts just couldn't generate enough offense to hang with the Bucks. Giannis came up huge with monstrous performances in Games 5 and 6 to seal Milwaukee's first series win since 2001. Sheesh. The Bucks closed out the Celtics in a 111-104 thriller behind a 33-point and 12-rebound effort from Giannis. Long live the Greek Freak. Rockets 4 Wolves 0. After watching the Timberwolves offense regurgitate crappy shots in a totally non-competitive Game 2 on Wednesday, I'd say that 2K got this one right. Aside from a close overtime victory in Game 3, the Rockets had no trouble dispatching the Wolves. James Harden averaged a seemingly impossible 34 points per game on 64% shooting from the field. I repeat, 64%. Not to mention a casual 58% from three-point range. Minnesota's frustrating offensive struggles hysterically translated to the video game universe. Karl-Anthony Towns attempted only 11 shots per game in his first playoff rodeo. Don't worry though, 38-year-old Jamal Crawford averaged 10 attempts per game. Thanks a bunch Thibs. Thunder 4 Jazz 2. This was perhaps the most competitive series of the first round on a game-to-game basis. The Thunder closed out the Jazz in 6, but almost every game was a hard-fought nail-biter. The series was also damn ugly, as exhibited in a bizarre Game 3 in which the teams combined to shoot 12 of 65 from three-point range. Donovan Mitchell successfully shouldered a massive offensive load for Utah, although he sustained a bad knee sprain in Game 5 after leading the Jazz all the way back from 12 down in the fourth quarter to stave off elimination. With Mitchell missing Game 6, an undermanned Utah squad lost a 94-93 heartbreaker at home. Carmelo Anthony came to Oklahoma City's rescue, now that's a phrase we haven't uttered all year, leading the Thunder with 19 points in 27 minutes to knock out Utah. Knowing this Utah squad and coaching staff, you wouldn't expect anything less than them fighting to the bitter end no matter the odds. Pelicans 4 Trail Blazers 1. Even 2K understands the mystical powers of playoff Rondo. After Anthony Davis shockingly pulled a Karl Towns and attempted 8 field goals in 37 minutes in a Game 2 loss, the Pelicans bounced back and smoked the Blazers the rest of the way. New Orleans dominated behind strong performances from the Brow, Nikola Mirotic and Drew Holiday. Can we call him Drew the Domager? Mirotic went off in the close-out game in Portland, pouring in 25 points in 27 minutes. Much as they have in reality, Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum struggled mightily in this series. Although Lillard had a few bright spots, McCollum was a disaster all series. He shot 39% from the field. Even worse for the Blazers, soon-to-be restricted free agent Yusuf Nurkic tore his MCL in Game 4. Portland's tortured injury history with big men continues. You can't help but feel for the Blazers as they got bounced early for the second straight year. But Portland's exit does mean that we get round 2 playoff basketball in the Smoothie King Center. Hell yeah. Warriors 4 Spurs 0. There isn't all that much to say about this series. It was an absolute demolition job by the Warriors. With Steph Curry nursing an MCL sprain, Golden State smoked the Spurs by 22 points per game in an emphatic sweep. Klay Thompson picked up the slack for his injured Splash brother and dropped 30 per game on San Antonio. He buried the Spurs behind a hailstorm of long-range bombs in Game 4, going off for 40 points with 8 three-point makes. In other news, we're still not sure if Kawhi Leonard attended any of San Antonio's games or if he maintained contact with any of his teammates. Page 2 Harden hyped about sweeping OKC. A screenshot courtesy of NBA 2K18 Rockets 4 Thunder 0. Chris Paul finally made the conference finals. Given the tortured playoff history of the stars involved in this series, with the exception of playoff P of course, a Houston sweep seems somewhat unlikely, and yet, the virtual Rockets take no prisoners. They obliterated the Thunder in 3 out of the 4 games of this series. Game 1 was an 135-88 embarrassment of epic proportions in which Harden dropped 31 points and Chris Paul came 3 steals short of a quadruple-double. Much the same occurred in the next 2 games of this star-studded matchup. Gerald Green went for 17 points in 17 minutes during a 114-95 thrashing in Game 2 and CP3 netted another triple-double in a 119-98 romp in Game 3. In a strange turn of events, the Thunder bench performed fairly well, but the starters got worked. Steven Adams and Paul George were uncharacteristically bad, especially shooting the ball. The Rockets simply keep on rolling behind the preposterous efficiency of Harden and Paul. Not even playoff P could save the Thunder from the Rockets' buzzsaw. Houston shut down OKC's offense and finished the four-game stretch with a plus 22-point differential. The Rockets are pretty good at basketball. Warriors 4 Pelicans 1 With Steph Curry still out, the Warriors barely survived a haymaker from the Pelicans in Game 1, escaping with a 121-119 win. Klay Thompson came up huge with another 30-point game. The Pelicans fought hard in an ugly Game 2, but the offense in 102-92 loss. New Orleans then pulled off a huge comeback Game 3, fighting back from 18 down to win the game. Nikola Mirotic led the way with an incandescent shooting performance, dropping 38 points and a ridiculous 10 three-point bombs on the defending champs. Steph Curry returned for Golden State in Game 4, and boy did he came back with a vengeance. Things did not go well for New Orleans. They went about as poorly as possible actually, as KD, Steph and Klay put on one of the greatest collective heat checks in NBA history. Durant went for 41, Curry exploded for 37 in his return and Thompson added a nonchalant 30. The trio combined for 14 makes from long distance. Let that sink in for a minute. 108 points between three dudes. Unsurprisingly, the Warriors closed out the series at home in Game 5. Sixers 4 Bucks 2 The future of the NBA was on display in this series, as Embiid and Simmons took on Giannis. Despite Giannis going bonkers, the Sixers outlasted the Bucks in a brutally close series behind numerous monster performances from Joel Embiid. Both Giannis and Embiid bizarrely averaged the exact same stat line by the end of the series. And they were both Hakeem-like, averaging exactly 23/10/4 with 3 blocks per game. These teams produced one hell of a series. Every game in the series was decided by 4 points or less, with the exception of the pivotal Game 5 in Philly. After the Bucks jumped out to a 2-1 lead, Philly came back to win 3 straight. Embiid delivered a signature performance in Game 5, hopefully the first of many, destroying the Bucks with a 33/7/7 and 6 blocks. Philadelphia took Game 5 124-116 and then closed out Milwaukee in a 100-96 grind. J.J. Redick came up huge in the closeout game, nailing 5 shots from beyond the arc. Cavaliers 4 Wizards 3 After years of the Wizards talking crap about the Cavs, they finally got their chance to go at Cleveland in a playoff series. And they came up just short, losing at Cleveland in Game 7. We got the full-on wacko Cavs experience again in this matchup, with offensive explosions, blown leads, complete no-shows and try-hard mode LeBron. Oh, and a Jordan Clarkson buzzer beater in Game 5 of course. LeBron averaged a casual 30/8/8 to lead Cavs past the galvanized virtual Wizards. After trading lopsided wins through the first 4 games, Washington appeared to have Cleveland on the ropes in Game 5. LeBron led a late comeback from down 8 in the last 4 minutes of the game, which was improbably capped off by a Jordan Clarkson buzzer beater. Just when Washington has you believing, they self-destruct. The Wizards took Game 6 109-106 however, despite a vintage 33/9/12 game from James, Marcin Gortat and Markieff F. Morris led the Wizards to victory. It makes sense if you don't think about it much. Imagine the headlines. The Wizards hung with the Cavs during the first half of Game 7, only to fall apart in the second. Cleveland won 116-90 in another episode of The LeBron Show. He put up with 30/16/7 on 11 of 16 shooting. Watch out for the King. Philly, Page 3 Kevin Love consoles Ben Simmons. Screenshot courtesy of NBA 2K18 Cavaliers 4 Sixers 2 What a remarkable story. The Sixers host the Eastern Conference Finals in their first playoff appearance since the start of the process. LeBron nearly averaged a triple-double as the Cavs edged the precocious Sixers in another close series. Philly laid the smackdown on Cleveland in Game 1, erupting for 132 points against the often hapless Cavs defense. The teams went on to split the first 4 games of the series, with some big games from LeBron on the Cleveland side as Joel Embiid and Robert Covington carried the Sixers. The Cavs and Sixers then delivered 2 classics in Games 5 and 6. Cleveland pulled out an overtime thriller away in Game 5, eking by the Sixers 104-100. Jeff Green led the team in scoring off the bench with 20 points. Yup, Jeff freaking Green. LeBron also recorded his second triple-double of the series. Game 6 also seemed poised for overtime, as the teams were knotted up at 114 in the dying embers of the game. In a bizarre last 45 seconds, Embiid committed a turnover in the post. Jeff Green subsequently got swatted at the rim by Saric, and then Markelle Fultz threw a terrible pass to give Cleveland the ball with 15 seconds left. With a trip to the NBA Finals hanging in the balance, LeBron came up huge on the game's last possession. He crossed up Robert Covington, and then nailed a mid-range jumper at the buzzer to send Cleveland to a fourth straight finals after another roller coaster ride of a season. That makes 8 straight finals appearances for the King. KD stunned. A screenshot courtesy of NBA 2K. Rockets 4 Warriors 2. Given all the playoff demons of Harden, Paul and D'Antoni, a 39-point home loss in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals was a disconcerting way to kick off the series, to say the least. Matters only worsened in Game 2 as Harden completely fell apart, going 3 of 16 from the field while Steph went for a playoff career-high 46 points. The Warriors took that game 119-88. Yet, in a display of toughness and perseverance nobody thought possible from a D'Antoni team, the Rockets came back from the dead. Weathering a firestorm of three-pointers from Steph, who stayed hot all series, the Rockets beat the Warriors 4 straight times. The only game that was particularly close was Game 5 in Houston, in which the Rockets jumped out to a big lead in the third quarter and Golden State staged a frantic comeback in the fourth that fell just short. Houston triumphed 118-114 despite another bad shooting night from James Harden. Gerald Green was the spark plug that Houston needed, however, stepping up and catching fire off the bench. He contributed 18 points in 17 minutes, contributing 15-plus points in each of the last 3 games of the series. The Rockets closed out the defending champs in Oracle Arena, winning 120-109, behind monstrous games from James Harden and Eric Gordon. Harden dropped 30/7/8 and Gordon poured in 21 points in 26 minutes. Curry went for 39, but it just wasn't enough. Draymond Green fell off a cliff in this series, shooting 32% and only once cracking double digits in scoring. Klay Thompson faded after a strong showing in the first 3 games. And the Warriors' bench was a total disaster with the exception of Gulp. JaVale McGee. After one of the most dominant 4-year runs in league history, the Warriors have taken home 2 titles in 4 years. You can't help but feel like that's a bit of a disappointment. Cue the Warriors blew a 2-0 lead memes. Page 4. Use your arrows to browse Harden and Paul celebrate a title. A screenshot courtesy of NBA 2K18. Rockets 4 Cavaliers 1. The 2018 Finals played out quite similarly to the 2017 Finals. The Cavs had some moments, scored damn well all series and kept most games close. But they just couldn't stop the Rockets. Cleveland put a scare into Houston in the first 2 games of the series. The Cavs took a lead into the fourth in Game 1 before fading late in a 108-101 loss and then won Game 2 behind big performances from LeBron and Kyle Korver. Cleveland couldn't come away with a win in Game 3, losing 123-119 after staging a big second-half comeback. LeBron posted a ridiculous 39/12/11 with 3 blocks, while Chris Paul put up 24/11/12 his own. Despite a catastrophically bad 4 of 20 shooting performance from Harden in Game 4, another big-time game from Chris Paul sealed a comfortable 15-point victory in Cleveland. Houston finally clinched the title in a wild Game 5 shootout, after Harden seemingly iced the game by putting the Rockets up 126-119 with a minute left. Kyle Korver nearly engineered an insane comeback for the Cavs. He hit 2 deep 3-pointers and cut the lead to 2 as Cleveland played the foul game, but it was too little too late. Ultimately Cleveland went down as it did in 2017, unable to muster enough defensive intensity to win the finals. It's time to start revving up the LeBron hot take machine after Cleveland came up short in the finals once more. Will he stay or will he go? CP Finals MVP. A screenshot courtesy of NBA 2K18. The Rockets finally completed their redemption story. James Harden dropped 34 in the closeout game as the Rockets brought the title and NBA title to Houston for the first time in 23 years. This was simply Houston's year. The Rockets dominated the regular season despite Chris Paul missing 24 games, yet CP took home the Finals MVP award, silencing the critics and finally getting that ring he has so desired. What a world 2K has made for us. Use your arrows to browse.